Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I'm the maintenance director at Sunrise Gardens, an independent senior living center. It's basically an apartment complex where you have to be at least 62 to live. We provide 3 meals daily, housekeeping, activities, shuttle service, and lots of other amenities to make life better for our residents. After all, many of them will spend their final years with us. Our facility prides itself on being family-oriented. We actually encourage employees' family members to join our team. There's just one golden rule in our employee handbook. Ensure resident safety, happiness, and quality of life. This place is more than just a job to me, I often tell my team. These residents are like family. During the day, our residents keep themselves busy. Some listen to radio shows, others tackle crossword puzzles, but most of them love watching their favorite TV shows. We don't provide TV service ourselves. Residents have to arrange that on their own if they want it. Starting in early 2023, we noticed a troubling pattern. TVs started acting up in countless units, leaving our residents frustrated and upset. "Mr. James," Mrs. Anderson would call out, her voice shaking. "My shows are gone again. I'm missing my afternoon programs." Whenever I get a TV-related work order, I investigate thoroughly. Usually, if the cable isn't damaged, everything's properly connected, and there's clear satellite reception, it's typically a software problem. As a temporary fix, I install an indoor antenna until their regular service is restored. "Don't worry, Mrs. Anderson," I'd say, setting up the antenna. "This will at least get you your local channels until we can get the satellite folks out here." I call the company. A technician comes out, fixes it, and like clockwork, within hours it stops working again. This became an endless cycle of disappointment for our residents. Throughout 2023, I reached out to multiple supervisors trying to arrange a property-wide assessment. "Listen," I told one supervisor, "we need someone to check every unit systematically. This isn't working." Their response? "Each resident needs to call us individually with their account information and security questions." "Do you understand that many of our residents are hard of hearing?" I explained. "They can't handle complex phone conversations or remember 4-digit codes and security questions." One resident, Mrs. Thompson, went without service for over 2 months. When I demanded compensation, they offered her a measly $21 credit, not even half of one monthly payment. "This is unacceptable," I told the representative. "Either make this right or I'm removing every single satellite dish from this property." But that wasn't even the worst part. These companies had turned our property into a maze of cables. They ran coax through gutters, over downspouts, and across walkways, creating tripping hazards for our elderly residents. They planted dishes wherever they pleased, in courtyards, gardens, anywhere convenient for them. Cables stretched across our lawn for hundreds of feet, completely unburied. By January 2024, I'd had enough. During a meeting with our owner, Mr. Carter, I laid out all the issues. "Do whatever needs to be done," he said. "Just fix this mess." After exploring our options, I found a solution: switching to a cable company that didn't require satellite dishes. Over the past 3 months, I've installed new coax lines to every unit, and the cable company has set up service in each apartment. "This is wonderful," Mrs. Anderson exclaimed when I set up her new box. "And you say it's free?" "Yes, residents who previously paid monthly fees now get free service, and those who never had TV before now enjoy it too. We've saved over 50 residents their monthly TV bills, and more than 200 residents total now have television service included in their rent, with no rent increase." This was my way of getting back at that rude representative who disrespected Mrs. Thompson. Seeing the smiles on our residents' faces makes it all worthwhile. The next one is an entitled People's Story. Let me start by saying I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts. But here we are. This all started about 8 months ago when my new neighbors moved in next door. I live in a nice suburban neighborhood in Colorado where most houses have decent-sized backyards. I've been here for 5 years and never had any issues until Karen and Steve, not their real names, showed up. I'm a 34-year-old software engineer who works from home. Last year I decided to treat myself to a nice hot tub for my backyard. I did everything by the book. got the proper permits, had it professionally installed with proper electrical work and safety features, and made sure it complied with all local ordinances. It's positioned on my back patio, surrounded by privacy screening and well within my property boundaries. I mainly use it in the evenings to relax after work or on weekends. The first couple weeks after Karen and Steve moved in seemed fine. We exchanged polite waves, but they kept to themselves. Then one day, I noticed something odd while I was working in my home office, which has a window facing their house. Karen was standing on a chair next to their fence, clearly trying to peer into my backyard. I thought it was strange, but tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. A few days later, I was in my hot tub around 8 p.m. when I heard voices near my gate. I got out to check and caught Karen and Steve's teenage son trying to look through the slats in my privacy fence. When they saw me, they quickly walked away without saying anything. That's when the real problem started. The next morning, I got a knock on my door. It was Karen, and she did not look happy. "We need to talk about that thing in your backyard," she said, arms crossed. "You mean my hot tub?" I asked. "Yes, it's completely inappropriate to have something like that in a family neighborhood. What if children see you using it?" I was dumbfounded. "It's in my private fenced backyard, and I always wear appropriate swimwear." "Well, I've seen you in there drinking alcohol," she accused. "Occasionally I have a beer in my hot tub, yes, on my private property. As an adult," I replied. "Well, I'm reporting it to the homeowner association. It's probably against the rules." She huffed and stormed off. I checked my homeowner association documents again just to be sure. Hot tubs were explicitly permitted with proper permits, which I had. A week later, I got a letter from the homeowner association confirming I was in compliance. I thought that would be the end of it. Nope. A few days later, I noticed something metallic glinting from their second-floor window. A security camera pointed directly at my backyard. I took photos documenting its placement and angle. Then I noticed a second camera mounted on their fence, again aimed at my property. I sent them a certified letter requesting they redirect their cameras to only film their own property, citing our state's privacy laws. They never responded. Instead, things escalated. One evening, while I was enjoying a peaceful soak, 2 police officers showed up at my gate. Karen had called them claiming I was engaging in lewd behavior in my hot tub. The officers quickly realized it was a bogus call when they saw me fully clothed in swim trunks, simply relaxing in my own backyard. "Ma'am, we get calls like this sometimes," one officer told me sympathetically. "Document everything in case you need it later." I took his advice and started keeping detailed records of every interaction. The police visits continued. Noise complaints, despite my hot tub being whisper quiet, allegations of suspicious gatherings when I had 2 friends over for a BBQ, and claims that I was running an illegal business because I work from home. Each time the police found no violations. Eventually they started warning Karen about making false reports, but she wouldn't stop. The final straw came when she started telling neighbors I was some kind of predator who lured people to my hot tub. That's when I decided to take legal action. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in harassment cases and showed him my documentation, photos of their cameras, copies of police reports, witness statements from neighbors, and recordings of Karen yelling over the fence. "This is textbook harassment," my lawyer said. "We can file for a restraining order and sue for damages." We filed both civil and criminal complaints. The evidence was overwhelming. Their own security cameras had captured Karen's multiple attempts to spy on my property, and the police reports showed a clear pattern of false allegations. During discovery, we found something shocking. Karen had created a neighborhood Facebook group dedicated to exposing me, where she posted photos taken through my fence and made wild accusations. This proved to be her undoing, as it demonstrated clear intent to harass and defame. The court proceedings were intense. Karen tried to paint herself as a concerned citizen protecting neighborhood children, but her story fell apart under cross-examination. Judge: "Mrs. Thompson, can you explain why you installed cameras specifically aimed at your neighbor's private backyard?" Karen: "For security. He could be doing anything in there." My lawyer: "Could you specify what security threat my client posed while legally using his hot tub within his fenced property?" Karen: "Well, you never know. He's single and has a hot tub. That's suspicious." Judge: "Ma'am, being single and owning a hot tub is not suspicious behavior." The evidence of harassment was so clear that the judge granted a temporary restraining order before the main case even concluded. Karen and Steve were ordered to remove their cameras and cease all contact with me. As the case proceeded, more neighbors came forward with their own stories. Apparently, Karen had a history of harassing previous neighbors at their old residence, something that came out during the discovery process. Their former neighbors provided sworn statements about similar patterns of surveillance and false complaints. The civil case went to trial after Karen refused multiple settlement offers. During the 3-day hearing, my lawyer methodically presented our evidence: 14 false police reports, over 30 documented instances of trespassing to peer over my fence, 47 defamatory posts in her Facebook group security camera footage showing her attempting to tamper with my gate lock, testimonies from 5 neighbors about her spreading false rumors, evidence of her contacting my employer trying to get me fired, records of multiple frivolous homeowner association complaints. The judge was particularly concerned about the surveillance cameras. In our state, it's illegal to deliberately position security cameras to record private areas of neighboring properties. Karen's attempts to justify this backfired spectacularly. "Your Honor, he could have been naked in there," she exclaimed during testimony. "Mrs. Thompson," the judge replied sternly, "your concern about potential nudity in a private backyard led you to set up cameras specifically to try to capture such footage. Do you understand how that makes your position worse, not better?" Her face went red and she had no response. The verdict came down hard in my favor. The judge granted a permanent restraining order requiring them to remove all cameras facing my property, stay at least 50 feet from my property line, cease all direct and indirect contact, remove all social media posts about me, pay my legal fees. Additionally, I was awarded $47,000 in damages for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. Karen burst into tears when the judgment was read, while Steve just looked defeated. But the story doesn't end there. Remember how I mentioned Karen had contacted my employer? Well, she had sent them emails claiming I was running an illegal business from my hot tub, whatever that means, and demanding I be fired. My company's legal team got involved and sent her a cease and desist letter. When she continued, they filed their own lawsuit for tortious interference. Rather than face a second lawsuit, Karen and Steve put their house up for sale. They moved out 3 weeks ago, and I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that they're relocating to another state. The new neighbors who bought their house are a lovely retired couple who actually came over to introduce themselves properly. When I nervously mentioned my hot tub, they laughed and said they had one at their old house too. The $47,000 judgment is being paid through wage garnishment since Karen and Steve claimed they couldn't pay it as a lump sum. My lawyer says it could take a few years to collect the full amount, but I'm okay with that. The peace and quiet are worth more than money. I've since added some beautiful tall plants around my hot tub area for extra privacy, though I didn't really need to. The cameras are gone, the false police reports have stopped, and I can finally enjoy my backyard in peace again. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about documenting everything and standing up for myself legally. Some neighbors suggested I should have tried harder to keep the peace or be the bigger person, but I'm glad I took action. Nobody should have to put up with harassment in their own home. As for the hot tub, I still use it several times a week, and it's even more relaxing now without the feeling of being watched. I've hosted a few small gatherings with friends, and we often joke about the hot tub saga. One neighbor even decided to install their own hot tub after seeing how much I enjoy mine. The police officers who repeatedly responded to Karen's false calls stopped by last week just to check how things were going. They seemed genuinely happy to hear the situation was resolved, and one of them mentioned they'd used my case as an example in a training session about handling neighbor disputes. Sometimes I think about how much stress and money could have been saved if Karen had simply minded her own business. All of this because she couldn't handle the idea of someone enjoying their own backyard in peace. To anyone dealing with similar situations, document everything, know your rights, and don't be afraid to take legal action when necessary. Your home is your sanctuary, and you have the right to enjoy it without harassment. Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, I'm soaking in my hot tub as I write this post on my phone. The water's perfect, the privacy plants are thriving, and there's not a camera in sight. Update, 3 months later. The garnishment payments have been coming in regularly, and I've been putting them aside for home improvements. I used some of the money to install an even better privacy fence and a state-of-the-art security system of my own, ironically. I recently learned that Karen and Steve's marriage didn't survive the move. According to mutual acquaintances, The stress of the lawsuit and financial judgment led to their separation. While I don't celebrate their marital problems, it's a reminder that actions have consequences. The Facebook group she created was finally taken down after multiple reports, and several neighbors who had initially believed her accusations have since apologized to me. The whole incident actually brought our neighborhood closer together. We now have regular community gatherings, yes, sometimes involving my hot tub, and people are more mindful about respecting each other's privacy. The retired couple next door has become good friends. They recently installed their own hot tub, and we joke about forming a Hot Tub Owners Association, a much friendlier alternative to Karen's surveillance campaign. Life is peaceful now, just as it should have been from the start. And yes, I still have every security camera screenshot, police report, and legal document safely stored away, just in case history tries to repeat itself with future neighbors. The next one is a malicious compliances story. I work at a niche retail store located in the heart of town. Our customers are dedicated and often travel from afar just to visit us, so having a clear and accessible parking lot is crucial for our business. Unfortunately, our next-door neighbors, a family-run landscaping and garden supply store, have been a thorn in our side for years when it comes to parking. The tension between my boss and the landscaping store owner goes back over a decade before I joined, all over something trivial. I know the landscaper once complained about a tree on our side of the lot, which was unsightly for their customers. It was the pettiest neighbor drama you could imagine, but it festered for years. The final straw came after the Rona, when the physical business in town started picking back up and our parking lot started overflowing with cars again, many belonging to the landscaping store's customers. See, our two parking lots are connected. Ours is about twice the size of his, but the landscaper had decided to reserve almost all his spots for his landscaping vans. Ironically, those vans are rarely even there during business hours. As a result, his customers just parked in our lot, leaving us with few spaces for our own customers. My boss, trying to be reasonable, approached the landscaper with a suggestion. Maybe they could adjust their parking setup to free up a few more spaces for customers, and that their vans were welcome to park in our lot, if their lot was ever full. But the landscaper shot down the idea immediately, insisting that it was absolutely crucial to reserve all of those spaces for his vans, even though they were rarely there during the day. The conversation turned heated, ending with my boss threatening to put up a fence to separate the lots and enforce parking. The landscaper, practically daring him, shot back, "Go ahead," probably knowing how expensive that would be. As you can imagine, it ended with both men storming off and not speaking for 2 years. Typical neighbor stuff. Fast forward to recently, and we got a golden opportunity when a parking management company approached us with a proposal. They offered to install automated license plate cameras to enforce parking, allowing us to fine vehicles that stayed beyond a generous 3-hour free window if they hadn't paid. The setup would be free, we'd get most of the revenue, and they would keep any fines issued. It was perfect, especially since we were losing spaces to freeloaders, wouldn't really impact the customers of the nearby stores. And if anyone had a good reason to park there for longer, then we could give them an extension at our discretion. However, for the cameras to work, they needed to cover both our entrance and the landscaping store's entrance. Being the considerate neighbor, again, my boss had the parking company rep reach out to the landscaper to explain the deal and benefits. But true to form, the landscaper didn't even let the rep finish before kicking him out, making it very clear that under no circumstances would his lot become a paid parking zone. Instead of going through the hassle of putting up the necessary expensive fence, my boss had a better idea. Big rocks. One of his construction buddies had a stash of leftover rocks from a recent project and offered to place them for a great price. The parking company even agreed to front the cost, to be repaid through future parking revenue. On Monday morning, before opening hours, one of the buddy's employees, a big burly guy with arms like tree trunks, arrived with a truck and crane to place the rocks. The rocks were neatly spaced to allow pedestrians to pass with carts, but completely blocked vehicle access. The landscaper stormed out, yelling and trying to intimidate the worker into stopping. But the worker, unfazed, calmly told him to step back for his own safety, which made the much smaller landscaper back down and retreat in frustration. The rocks weren't just a physical barrier. They quickly became a mental obstacle for the landscaper's employees. Their muscle memory kept bringing them into our lot, only for them to realize too late that they couldn't drive through anymore. We watched from our newly installed surveillance cameras, just in case the neighbor tried anything, trying not to burst out laughing as their vans ended up awkwardly stuck. They'd have to reverse out and go all the way around to their own entrance, only to perform a series of painful maneuvers to squeeze into their now much smaller parking area. At one point, we even caught one of their rushing vans clipping a rock while trying to maneuver. A little bonus for our viewing pleasure. The next day, the parking company arrived to install the license plate cameras and set up the signage, which took a few hours. Throughout the installation, the landscaper's family members were prowling around our lot, snapping photos and videos as if they were on a mission to find a violation. But the parking company was very professional and had done everything by the book, so there was nothing for them to report. In the meantime, my boss was positively glowing with satisfaction as he helped direct the installation. Here's the best part. We noticed that the neighbor's family had started parking their personal vehicles in our lot, likely out of spite to mess with us. One day, my coworker saw one of the family members dash out of their store and sprint to their car. We thought it was odd at the time, but didn't think much of it until the following week, when the landscaper's son came into our store looking a bit embarrassed. Apparently, he had accidentally overstayed the 3-hour limit and received a $150 fine. The son practically begged us to waive it, insisting it was just a simple mistake. My boss politely responded, "Oh, I'd really love to help, but it's out of our control now. The parking company handles all the fines." The look on his face was priceless. He left, shoulders slumped, retreating back to their store. Ever since, our lot has been blissfully clear and our customers have had no trouble finding spaces. Meanwhile, the landscapers have been grumbling as they have a harder time maneuvering their vans, still trying to pretend they're not bothered. As for my boss, he's been smiling a lot more lately. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting people get exactly what they asked for. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.